YouTube family. I want to welcome all the new subscribers to the channel. Thank you so much for joining us, for joining the family. And I want to welcome back each and every one of you that have been here since day one. Thank you so much. Today, we are going to talk about the signs. Are we ignoring the signs? Deciding not to acknowledge? Are we seeing them and wishing they were something different? Are we noticing the signs? That is what we are talking about today. When we say signs, we're talking about those flags, those red flags. We're talking about that turn in your stomach, that not quite sure what is going on here, can't put a finger on it, but I feel that something is up. I feel that something is not quite right. I just don't know what it is, but I just know I'm hesitant a little bit. Something is telling me to just hold up. Something is telling me to hold off, or something is telling me to take it one step at a time and be very much aware. You know what I'm talking about? Let's get into it. We've all been there before. Been in some type of a friendship, a relationship, a situation, a job. At some moment in time, we knew something was off, or at some moment in time, we knew it was time to make a shift, but we weren't ready. And so life made the shift for us. I remember when I had worked in Brooklyn, and I was holding on dearly to this job that at one point, it was a glimmer of hope for me. It was my light at the end of a tunnel that got me out of a situation that I was in when I lost another job. And I'd gotten this gig, and I was holding on to it, trying to hold a big picture as to where it was going to take me. But a bunch of different things happened along the lines that were signs that it was time to go. But I still wasn't sure. And I've noticed with myself that when I get very hesitant on making certain moves because I don't want to, or because I want to hold out and I wish things were different, life usually makes the move for me. Something happens where even though I didn't want to shift, I had no choice. I remember feeling at some point, this was like the fall, that, okay, you gotta go. But I knew if I shared with the person that I was working with at the time that I was feeling this heavy sense of it's time to go, they would have probably thought I was crazy. And I know that a lot of us can speak to that when you have a feeling about something, but you know you can't share it to anyone else because they're gonna look at you as if you've lost it, because you're the only one that got the message. You're the only one that have that revelation. So I held on to that feeling. I clearly heard the voice, I'm gonna say the voice of the Holy Spirit saying, it's now or never. You got to jump ship. I was like, okay, bet, what am I going to do? Like, oh, wait. I've always wanted to do my master's. In what programs could I join to get my master's done? But I also know that I didn't want to pay for my master's. I had found out about a program that I was able to get my master's and teach a few years before, but I had missed the deadline when I had checked for it, and so I thought maybe it wasn't meant to be. Or maybe it wasn't the right timing. And so I had kept tabs on that same organization, and this time around, after hearing that voice that it's time to jump ship, I went online, I looked up the information, and I spent my next few days in commute to the place that I was working at, completing my essay. Up until the point where I got the letter saying, congratulations, you are now a teacher, I said nothing to the folks that I was working with. I kept it quiet, and then when I received my confirmation, I let them know to say, hey, I'm going to be transitioning, I'm going to be leaving. They had all that they had to say. But for me at that point, you know, when God says you got to go, you got to go. And as much as I was ignoring the flags, it was time to go, and I just couldn't hold on anymore, because I just knew that the intensity of what I felt, I knew if I hadn't moved on that something could have possibly happened, that you may have even stunted my progress. Who knows? We just never know. You never know unless you decide to not listen, not be obedient, and suffer the consequences, right? For they say an ounce of prevention is better than cure. Let me say that again. 1 ounce of prevention is better than cure. Okay, and the other one says obedience is better than sacrifice. I can also think about many relationships that I have been in, because I know we want to talk relationship, and I usually try to avoid these topics because sometimes they can get a little mushy. But I can think about relationships. I remember this one situationship that I was in. I call it a situationship because we never agreed to a relationship, right? You know, when you're in the gray area and it's like, well, what are we doing? What's happening here? You didn't ask me to be your lady. I didn't really officialize that you're my guy. So like, what are we doing? I guess we're in limbo. I guess this is a situationship and not a relationship. Whatever. In the beginning, I can't remember what it was like specifically, what the conversation was, but I just remember there being a response from the individual, and the response it kind of caught me off guard, and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, like, while this and caught me off guard in the sense of like funny but crazy, and I thought to myself, while this is funny, it seems kind of crazy, right? Crazy. But I said, you know what? Maybe it's just me. I'm just thinking too much. I'm just thinking too much. So I let it go. And a few other things happened after that where the actions were questionable, especially towards myself. And I thought to myself, is this how it's supposed to be? Like, is this person supposed to be so cold? Are they supposed to be this aggressive? Is the situationship supposed to feel so one-sided? What is going on here? Is the lack of communication supposed to be, is this normal? The flags. But I rationalized it to myself that I was thinking too much. You're thinking too much, Kay. You know what? Like, everybody is different. You have to learn to accept everyone for who they are, okay? Stop expecting people to be like you. And if they're not like you, accept them for who they are. That's how this situation is going to work. Some people get busy. They don't need to call you all the time. Oh, maybe they're just like really they don't know how to express their feelings, so it comes off as aggression. You know, the things we say to ourselves to rationalize the situation. Oh, he doesn't need to believe in God. The fact that he, has a moral compass and is a decent human being, that's sufficient, right? The things we say to ourselves in order to make it seem that everything is okay. In order to, and then we have to question what it is that's going on inside of us. We got to question our own judgments, our own security or insecurity, why it is that we are giving a pass to certain behaviors. Is there desperation, or is there something else that's going on there? And so different things will come up. They will come up, and until the point where I said no. So I realized something was not right here. Something was not right, and I had to make another choice for myself. And once again, in making that choice, because at first I didn't want to, but what started to happen, these actions, some of these things that I've mentioned to you before, they started to tear at me. And once that starts to affect my peace, right? Because your peace is priceless. So when things start to pull at your peace, it's time for them to go. When they start to shift you off center, you can have one or two conversations, but if the behavior doesn't change, then it's time to make another decision. So eventually, I had to call it what it was, right? Instability, inconsistency, had to put the label on it, notice all the flags, unwantedly at first, but when the pain became greater than anything else that was coming from the situation, it had to let go. And that's where I talk about where sometimes I don't want to make the decision, sometimes you don't want to make the decision, sometimes we don't want to make certain decisions, but then life causes us to have to make that shift. And so what we also find is that if we had just recognized and acknowledged these flags from the beginning, say, I'm not sure about this one, I'm going to trust my gut on this one, I'm going to pass. When we start to tap into ourselves and pass, on some of these things that instead of passing, we're like, let me try it out. It would save us from so much trauma, save us from so much pain. I continue to talk about these things because that's the reality. I think a lot of us have hurt and a lot of us have resentment from experiences that we have been through that we could have otherwise gone through, and sometimes experience that were no fault of our own, especially if it's from trauma. But because we may still be holding on to, right? It's showing up in different ways in our lives. And if it's not the childhood things that we're dealing with, it's the things that it's the choices that we made that we now have to heal from, that are causing us to hold certain perspectives when it comes to letting things go because of situationships. Maybe it's a possibility that we could have internalized. For example, if someone always told you that you were a horrible person in your situationships, at some point you begin to question whether or not you're a horrible person. That statement now, depending on how you've internalized it, now has you questioning who you are. And now you show up in another relationship impersonating someone who you're not. And then now that causes, it's a ripple effect, that causes a certain type of interaction between you and this new person who is perceiving you in the character that you're portraying, who essentially is not who you are in the core. And now there are layers of other things going on there. You're pretending to be someone you're not. You're unhappy because you're not sure if you fully become who you really are. You're not sure if this person's gonna like you or not like you. So because you're dealing with the traumas from the past relationship, you're showing up as somebody else in this relationship, and now you are dealing with all of that, which is now it's crippling us even more. So you can't really be you. You can't be you, and there's just layers and layers and layers and layers just packing onto it. One day you look in the mirror and you wonder who you are. You wonder how did I get here? Because we're trying to fit the mold. Because we ignore the red flags. Because we ignore the nudge in our gut, in our spirit. Some call it intuition, to say, hey, I don't think this one's for me. I don't think this one's for you. But because of everything else that the world has told us, we go against the nudge, the voice, because we want to be accepted, because we want to fit the mold. But what if we acknowledge the flags? And what if we acknowledge the nudge and we begin to say, I'm gonna go in another direction. Thank you. Seemed promising, but no thank you. Last summer I was in Thailand and I wanted to get something for my family member to bring back. And I was out in this area in Bangkok, walking, and this guy stops me, pulls me over on the side, say, hey, how are you? I'm like, I'm good, just out here walking, trying to get to the temple. He says, oh, don't bother going that way, it's closed today, it's closed. I said, closed? I didn't see that online. He said, yeah, they didn't put the information out on time, it's closed, they're having a holiday today, it's a sale, it's the Queen's birthday. So there's sale downtown, they're having a parade. Come on. And did you know the taxis are so much cheaper today because it's the Queen's birthday? Come on, we'll hook you up. And I'm like, wow, I'm fascinated. They're, out here in the headlights, like, I'm a tourist, and what perfect timing, it's the Queen's birthday. I gotta catch a flight in a couple hours. Like, where's the sale at? Where's the sale at? Let's go. Hop in the tuk-tuk. That's what you call the taxis in Thailand. In the tuk-tuk, hop in the tuk-tuk takes me over to this temple. And in the meantime, while I'm in the tuk-tuk, there's something on the inside that's like, something don't feel too right. This was just too perfect. The way he picked me up off the sidewalk stopped me and say, it's closed down there, don't go no further, it's a holiday. And he spoke such fluent English, telling me that he's a professor. Something was like, this sounds interesting, but I said, you know what, I'm thinking too much. and I went in the tuk-tuk. Tuk-tuk took me into another temple, and by the time I get there, I'm like, okay, where's the parade at? There's nobody, it's empty. A man inside tells me that I came just a few minutes late, that everybody had left. However, if I still want to see the temple, I can come on in. I go on into the temple. I saw another man about 3 feet in front of me. He knelt down, he was praying. So I sat down, I'm looking around, just observing. He gives me about a couple seconds before he turns around and makes small conversation. And I'm like, oh, hey, yeah, he's telling me that he's been out here for a little bit. He went to their sale, it's the Queen's birthday. He's telling me everything that the other guy told me. And he proceeded to show me some jewelry that he had just bought for his wife because it's their anniversary. And that he's out here visiting his family-in-law because they moved out here, and the story goes on. So I was like, whoa, that looks really good. And he said it was an amazing sale, so you gotta go. And I said, all right, I bet I'll go. And so I get back out of the temple, and the guy's like, thank you so much for coming. I'm like, thank you. I hop in a tuk-tuk, and tuk-tuk is like, did you see anything? And I'm like, yeah, it's all good. It was empty. They said the people left already, but it's all good. I hear there's amazing sales, so let's go. And the tuk-tuk takes me to the spot, the sale, and it looks like a little plaza with little stores, and it's a small jewelry store. And I'm like, where's the sale? Like, there are no signs that there's a sale. I get inside and there's not that many people. I thought this was a sale. So I'm looking around, I don't see anything that really catches my eye, but I'm like, oh goodness, I came so far. I need to get something to take home, so like and all of this just feels really weird, but you know what, let me just get something. Bought a pair of earrings for $70. $70, it's okay. They look like simple earrings. I said, you know what, let me get them anyway. Just, here's my card, charge it to the card. Credit card, you gotta sign for it. They're like, you only want to buy one? I say, yeah, that's okay, I'll just get one. It's like, oh, you can buy 3, you know. And I said, no, you know, I'll take my chances with $70. Then whatever the price could be, I'm good. I will take my price for one earring at that very cost-effective price. Thank you so much. I get back into the tuk-tuk. I check out, get back into the tuk-tuk. The tuk-tuk man, I said to him now, I said, okay, well, you know, it didn't really seem like a sale, but I got something, if he even understood much. And I said, so where's the parade? The man proceeds to drive and then tells me when he gets to a certain point that I need to get out. So I say, what? Like, I thought there was a parade. No parade. Go, get out. I was shocked. I was like, well, I'm not staying here, so you need to take me back to my hotel, like where I told you I was when you guys picked me up. Like, you need to take me back over there. He didn't even know where he was, and long story short, he threw me off somewhere, but I recognized the street, so I was able to walk back to where I was staying. I get into the place and I asked the desk host, the hostess. I asked her, I said, hey, is this the Queen's birthday? Is there a sale going on today? And she said, no. I said, well, you know, they told me that, and I went to the store and I bought. She said, it sounds like you got scammed. I went online. The exact script that the man told me was exactly what people were posting online about a common scam in Bangkok. If you travel a lot, this may be information that you know, how to look for scams in certain places. But if you don't travel a lot and you are potentially gullible, or you are potentially swayable, you gotta be careful, because these people were so convincing, they were so good, I got. And of course, I had to shed one tear because I got, and I had worked so hard to not fall into another traveling scam, because I had gotten into a situation in Mexico 2 summers prior. I say all that to say, if I had trusted my gut, if I had trusted the nudge, if I had trusted the spirit saying something don't feel too right, it sounds too good to be true, I wouldn't have went through that experience anyways. I wouldn't have been in that scam. I wouldn't have been in the situationship. I wouldn't have been in the previous work thing drama that I told you about. Although, as I said before, it was a blessing in the beginning, but there's a moment when the blessing is no longer, you're no longer in a season of blessing. You now got to move on to something else before it becomes a curse, right? When the blessing becomes a curse. So it's important to be in tune with the seasons of our lives and when it's time to make that shift. And as always, you know, I'm going to tie it in with a devotional. It's so important. So important. This devotional is called Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets. Better Decisions, Fewer Regrets. Day 3. Sometimes, in fact, more times than we would like to admit, an option we're considering creates tension inside of us. Something about it just seems a bit uncomfortable. Something about it doesn't seem exactly right. It gives us pause. It bothers us. It causes us to hesitate. And oftentimes we have no idea why. Experts sometimes refer to this phenomena as a red flag. An internal sense of, I'm not sure why, but something about this doesn't feel right. I was talking about this the whole video. When that happens, you owe it to yourself to pause and pay attention to the tension. Don't ignore it. Don't brush it off. Pause and ask yourself, what about this bothers me? I said that in the last video. If we could stop and check in, what about this bothering me? Where else have I felt this emotion before, and why do I feel this way about it? It's so important to have those check-ins, right? Those self-assessments. Don't ignore it. Don't brush it off. Pause and ask yourself, what about this bothers me? That internal hesitation, that red flag, is often God's way of turning us in another direction. People yielded to God don't attempt to play God. So if we surrender our lives to God, we are not going to attempt to play God. We don't predict outcomes. They don't predict outcomes. Instead, they surrender, they obey, they follow. As much as they want anything, they want to be able to lie in bed at night knowing that things are good between them and their Heavenly Father. And rightly so. As my dad is fond of saying, God takes full responsibility for the life wholly yielded to Him. So pay attention to the tension. If you don't, you may wake up on the other side of a decision you wish you could go back and unmake. Some of us are caught up in regrets. We're caught up in resentment because of decisions we made when we ignore the red flags. We all can speak from experience, and I say we because it's a we thing, not a you thing, not pointing fingers, but a we as in us. We all have made some decisions by being disobedient because we ignored those red flags. And then we're left with the consequences of the choice that we made. And then now it's our opportunity to self-assess and say, wait, where did I miss the signs? Where did I go wrong? Let me look back. If I had went with the nudge in the first place, if I had went with when he laughed crazy and slapped the wheel and stared at me in a strange way, and went with the, oh my goodness, he may not be right upstairs. If we had went with the nudge, we wouldn't have had the headache, the heartache that followed, right? The consequences of missing the red flag. So pay attention to the tension. If you don't, you may wake up on the other side of a decision you wish you could go back and unmake. But we say, thank God that He done saved us from some things that we could have actually went through, right? We dodged the bullets. If there's something in you, something you can't put your finger on, or perhaps something someone else has put a finger on that bothers you about an option you're considering, pause and pay attention. That tension may very well be God's way of protecting you. It may be His way of waving you off from a decision you will regret later. Every time you make a decision, especially a decision that takes you by surprise, ask yourself, is there a tension that deserves my attention? Is there a tension that I'm feeling here in this decision that I'm making that deserves my attention? Don't ignore it. Don't brush it off. Don't brush by it. Let it bother you until you know why it bothers you. There's a reason. There's a reason why you're feeling. Okay? No, listen, let's ignore the folks who will call us crazy. Let's ignore the folks who are going to say whatever they want to say about the fact that we feel a little off about the situation. Let's pay attention to the nudge, to the senses, to those flags in those relationships. Like, if you don't know, then it's a no. When in doubt, do without. And that's something that I am learning consistently, to trust myself, to trust the God in me, to know what's best for me, and not listen to other people tell me what they think is good for me, because oftentimes 99.9% they are wrong. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, you will hear a voice saying, "This is the road, now follow it." And that is Isaiah 30 verse 21. That's the Holy Spirit speaking in us. Whether you turn to the right or to the left, God is always speaking to us, sending us messages, directing us, even in unexpected ways. Because sometimes when we're praying, we're asking for answers, we may not hear it immediately, but then at a certain point, the path becomes clear, things become revealed to us. And so it's important to be surrendered, to be in tune, to stay prayed up, right? To keep the main things, and keep our lives in God's hands. Ask me and I will tell you things that you don't know and cannot find out. That's Jeremiah 33 verse 3. 33 verse 3, 333, God says, ask me and I will tell you the things that you don't know and can't find out. I will give you the answers. So when we feel those nudges and we feel that, and we see those red flags, pray about it. Gain wisdom on it and take a pause. Stop checking. Do not be rushed. Do not be bothered, because there's no greater time than now. We live today. Tomorrow is not promised. God is the Alpha and the Omega, right? The Alpha and the Omega, the author and finisher of our faith. So if we should be consulting anybody, it should be the one and only, the God Almighty, okay? And so I say that with so much joy and excitement, because I too have, gone by the wayside at times, or like fell off the highway because I got caught up in what everybody else was saying except God. And in moments when I came back to say, all right, Big Papa, I'm listening, talk to me, I'm being obedient, what you want, what do you want? And those conversations are so rich. Even if I don't hear the response in the minute, God always finds a way to speak to my heart and comfort and deliver and direct me. And I'm so appreciative. And I just want to pay that forward. Thank you all so much. Don't ignore the nudges. Don't ignore the signs. Don't ignore the red flags. Take a moment to pause, self-assess, check in. Why are you feeling that way? Why are you feeling the way you're feeling about what you're feeling? And give it on over to God. Love and blessings. Each one, reach one, teach one. Thank you all for helping with the channel's goals. Share this video. Someone you know needs to hear this message. Again, thank you to all the new subbies. Keep coming, keep coming, keep coming. We love to see you over here on the channel. Leave a comment down below to let me know how you love this video. I appreciate all the engagement that I have been receiving, that we have been receiving in these past couple weeks on this channel. Love and blessings to you and yours. Each one, reach one, teach one.